Welcome to Flock Talk, the podcast where we feature your favorite authors and narrators. Hosted by Craig Hart and Sarah Hannon. Visit us today at pinkflamingoproductions.com. And now, Flock Talk. Well, all you happy flockers out there, and welcome to Flock Talk. My name is Craig Hart, and I'm here with my reliable co-host, Sarah Hannon. Sarah, how are you doing today?
Good. I'm so reliable. I was half an hour early for this interview. And yesterday we had a staff meeting. I was half an hour early for that. So it's not that I'm bad at writing things down. It's that I am reliable and I'm taking it and I'm running with it. And that is the story.
That's good. That's really good.
Awesome. Well, speaking of reliability, we have another awesome guest. Do you want to hit us off with a bio there, Sarah?
Yes. Andrea K. Stein, the daughter of a trucker and an artist, never knew it would take the hard work ethic of her father to achieve the light-filled magic of her mother's art. A newspaper and publishing professional for 30 years, she ran away to the sea for 3 years, delivering yachts up and down the Caribbean and earning a USCG offshore captain's license. Now she tells award-winning tales of the high seas from her writing room in Colorado. Hi, Andrea. It's so nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Sarah.
I am fascinated by that bio.
Me too.
You must have a lot of stories about the sea.
I do, and that's what I put in my novel.
So great. Any storms at sea? I'm always fascinated by those.
We did. I had one where we were delivering a yacht from the boat show up in Annapolis, and we were taking a brand new boat down to Marsh Harbor, and a huge hurricane had just swept along the coast and gone through Marsh Harbor in the Bahamas, and the sea was very rough. It was blowing about 60 knots, which is about 65 miles an hour. And and we had to stop the boat because it couldn't sail. It was overwhelmed. It was only a 38-footer, and so we had to do So we had to do something called heaving to, where you back the sails and then the boat just kind of rocks like a cork in one place. And that was very interesting. And a lot of people ask me, weren't you terrified? You don't have time to be terrified. You're working as fast as you can to stay alive. And at one point I got a radio transmission from a huge cruise ship. And he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, we're fine." And so we did fine. I worked with this very experienced British delivery captain for 3 years, and he taught me so much about the sea. And I never really felt like it was dangerous out there with him. We really we went through a lot, but we survived.
I've always read in books and seen in movies, and I've always wondered, what is the correct way to hit a wave?
Well, you want to slice through it. You don't want to hit it broadside. But if you have a ship that's properly weighted, it will do what it needs to do. Once you have set it to be stationary, it will hit the waves the way it needs to, because the ships are designed. Most of the ships I delivered were Beneteaus, and that's a French company that has a factory in Charleston, South Carolina, and they have wonderful ship designers. They sail so well on the ocean. I really never had a problem. It's hard work. It's really hard work, but I loved it. It was fun.
Did you ever pretend the yacht was yours?
Oh, of course. Of course. That's what I do. I make stuff up. Yes, I did. And I did a little series of 3 contemporaries a few years ago. Well, actually 2017. And they were based on super yachts, which are like the Beneteaus. And so I set those romances on that. And I had a lot of fun with that. I went to a lot of boat shows to see exactly how those big yachts, how they're laid out. And it was a lot of fun.
Well, speaking of making things up, tell us a little bit about your path to becoming an author from the sea. What was that transition like?
Well, I was in the newspaper publishing business for 30 years. And then I spent maybe 8 years, I think at least, as a consultant to commercial printers. And I had a little publishing company that I did this out of. And my company was bought by a printer out of Quebec, Transcontinental Imprimerie. And once they bought it, I was kind of, I did a few more consulting gigs, but I decided, you know what, I'm going to just go to sea. I always wanted to go to sea, and that's what I did.
So one of the things I admire about writing as a career, profession, hobby, is that you can start it at any time. Do you think you have to be born a writer, or do you think that like going through all those life experiences like you had can make basically anyone a writer?
I think writing is something, and people come to me and say, I have a great idea for a book. Yeah, I'll give you the idea, and you write it. And I'm like, no, that's not how it works. I think writers are writers. I think if you don't write because you have to write, then it's really going to be a hard job, because I do 3 or 4 books a year, and that's really hard work. If you don't really write from a well of of happiness or that you love, of things you love, then it's going to be hard work, and I think it's going to show through to your readers. I think they'll feel that when they read your books, that you're kind of you're trying too hard. But I don't know. I'm not an expert, but I've always been a writer. I wrote for newspapers. I was an editor. I was a photographer, and in between, I always wrote. I'm constantly writing stuff. So I guess maybe there's a way to decide to be a writer and then, figure it out. And I'm sure a lot of people do that, but I wouldn't. I don't think I could.
You have a regular output of books. What is your writing schedule like? Do you write every day? Do you have a daily word limit? How does that work for you?
I have a writing group that we have a Zoom account, and we get together once a week to do critiques. But every morning at 10, we do a writing sprint. So I close the door, and I have this little guy right here. See him?
Yeah.
That's my monkey.
Ladies and gentlemen, we were looking at a monkey egg timer. It was a monkey-shaped egg timer.
Yeah, okay. It is. And so that's how I write. And I can do, per hour, I do 1,500 to 2,000 words in an hour. Mm-hmm. When I get towards the end of a book and the writing's going really well, I will do maybe 2 to 4 of those sprints throughout the day. And so then earlier this year, I've already put out 2 books this year. The last one came out in May 24th. And so I am taking some time off to give my brain a rest, in my hands, because I've got carpal tunnel going on, of course. But in between, when you're a writer, you're always thinking about the next book or 2 books down the line. And so I'm, constantly plotting, thinking about, what's the next thing I'm going to do. And the books that I'm working on now, I have 2 more this year. And one, I'm kind of in the first third of it, which is a Christmas book that comes out December 4th. And then I have another one at the end of the year that's going to be a lot of fun. It's called Sex, Lies, and Forbidden Desires. And it's a
Can I narrate that?
Yes, you can. It's a Regency series that has the most bizarre characters, and it was so much fun. And I'm writing it with Louisa Cornell, who is a hoot. So we're 2 little old ladies who love to write, and so we're starting that series. Probably books 1 and 2 will be out by the end of the year.
Is it hard to start writing with a partner if you're used to writing by yourself?
Well, Louisa and I decided up front, we know each other well enough that we decided up front, she's going to write the first book, I'll do the second, she's doing the third. The series will be by both of us, but we'll each do a book on our own. Now, my 3 books that I wrote about the contemporary yachts, I wrote with a very good friend of mine who's a Denver writer who writes sci-fi and fantasy, Aaron Ritchie, and we nearly killed each other because we tried to write it together. I'd write a chapter, then he'd write a chapter, and there were times I wanted to drive up 25 and kill him. That's how I felt. Fortunately, we're still friends. We got him out. We're still friends. But oh man, that was really, yeah, that's not it. That doesn't work for me. I now I learned that we did 3 books that way.
Well, you mentioned plotting the book, even when you're not actively writing it, you're plotting it. Does that mean that you work from an outline, or are you a pantser who just who plots in your head? How does your process work?
Well, if you look at the board behind me here, if I can show it to you.
I see sticky notes.
I see sticky notes.
Sticky notes. Yeah, that's what it is. It's sticky notes. I have a system where I divide my books into 4 acts. And there's Act 1, then there's 2A and 2B, the long middle that people grind their teeth over. And then there's Act 3. And so I really like the long middle. I have a good time with it. I have the sticky notes. I know what's going to happen. But when I write a romance, I need to get in that book and roll around in the mud with the characters. I have to get in there, and every day I'm writing something or thinking about them. And once I get to that point and I know exactly who they are and how they're going to react to each other, then it goes really quickly. And I don't do like really precise outlines. You can't, because my characters often take off on tangents of their own. They just decide to do something and they leave me behind in the dust. And I'm like, where'd they go? So I can't really outline precisely.
It sounds like a beat writer. There's a book called Save the Cat, and it's less about.
That's my book. I use Save the Cat a lot, and I like Gwen Hayes, who used to be an editor with Harlequin. She wrote a book of romance beats based on Save the Cat, and I use that. I swear, that's my Bible. And you can get that on Amazon. It's a real simple, easy, fast read, and it makes so much sense for people like me.
Do you ever come up against writer's block? How do you handle it, if you do?
I honestly don't think there is such a thing as writer's block. I don't. And I think if someone truly is blocked and they're a writer and they really want to write, they need to get some therapy. And I'm not being facetious. I'm serious. Because if you're a writer and you have all these ideas spinning around in your head, you just, and I think some people think they're blocked because they don't sit their can in the chair and write. Put your hands on the keyboard and you will write. That's the key, is don't think about it. And sometimes, have you ever had a big project that you procrastinated forever because you were afraid?
That's my life.
That's because you're afraid to start it. You're afraid. We're all afraid of failure, and I think it's kind of bound up in that. But like I say, I just get in there in the mud with my characters and roll around with them. And once I do, then the story flows. I know what it is because they tell me what it is. They know. My characters know what they want to do. Yeah,
and there's something about writing too. We talk about fear of failure with. If you feel you have failed at something like writing it, because it's such a personal thing. That's one reason I think why bad reviews sting so much with something like writing, because it's like,
Well, I just, I went to a conference, an online conference, and Eloise James was the keynote speaker, and I just love her. And I thought that I was crazy because I make my writing partner read my reviews. I can't read them. I can't, because here's what happens. If they're bad, you feel like a piece of crap.
Well, it's so personal.
It is. But here's the thing. If they're really good and they say, oh, my God, this is wonderful, blah, 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 and then you're like, oh, I'm pretty good. And then you can't write either. So I don't read them at all. And Eloise James doesn't either. She says, don't read your reviews.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's good advice.
I look at the averages on Amazon. If I had a 3-star average, I'd be worried, and I would read them to see what I'm doing wrong. But so far, I haven't gone into the toilet with my reviews so far.
Speaking of advice, what is a piece of advice that you would give to a beginning writer?
I think the most important thing, I have about 13 or 14 different titles now on Amazon, and they're all fiction. The first book that I wrote, my first romance novel, took me 7 years to figure it out. 7 years. And writing fiction, when you've been a journalist for so many years, it's very difficult to switch gears. And I just went to every conference, every class I could find. I found a critique group, which really helped me a lot. And so don't be afraid to ask for help if you're a beginning writer, because there's a lot of people they're happy to help. They want to help you. Just reach out, and you need a group. You need a posse. So find a critique group or join something like a regional writers group. Or here in Colorado, we have the Rocky Mountain Fiction Writers, and we have the Pikes Peak Writers, both great groups, and they've got people that will help you. And when you go to a conference, don't sit in a corner because you think nobody wants to talk to you. Go get yourself a Coke or some other beverage of choice, and go just walk around and talk to people. And, if you feel stupid, that's fine. Just try it. And there's so many people that really want to help you.
Good advice.
That's great advice, yeah. That wraps up our primary interview portion. Now for a section we like to call Hot Six. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Buckle up, listeners. It's time for Hot Six.
Question 1. What is the most overrated book you've read?
I can't think of one. I love everything I've read so far. I read all kinds of stuff. I read nonfiction. I read bestsellers, women's fiction. But overrated? If something is praised to the heavens and everybody on the planet wants to buy it and read it, I kind of hang back and see what happens.
I think that is perfectly acceptable answer. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Question 2. What famous literary work have you never read but feel like you should have?
Ulysses.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Everybody I know. My poor husband actually bought it a few years ago when we went to Dublin because he thought he should read it. And it's been I'll bet 8 years, and he's still reading it.
That's wonderful.
I know there must be something great in there, but I don't know what it is.
Question 3. If you could be any animal for one day, what would you be?
Raccoons. They are the most clever critters on the planet. They can get into a garbage can in 10 seconds flat, even if you secure it. And they appear to have a really good time at night.
So it reminds me, it's not about raccoons, but I saw somebody asked a park ranger why they're having such a difficult time inventing garbage dumpsters that bears can't get into. And his answer was, well, we have discovered that the overlap between the smartest bears and the dumbest tourists is much larger than we expected. So if we build it too difficult for bears to get into, there are too many humans who can't figure it out either.
Well, we have them here in Colorado, and I can't tell you how many times at a park or a hiking trail, someone will come up to me, how do you open that thing? Why is it built like that? I'm like, well, the bears have figured it out.
All right. Question 4. What is your biggest grammatical pet peeve?
People who don't use commas. I hate that. And it's like, commas are important. They can make a huge difference. But I have people who spell phonetically, which is really no fault of their own. They went through some kind of experimental thing when they were in grade school, probably, poor things. But yeah, commas and spelling phonetically. That's it.
Okay, question 5. Looking back over your entire lifetime, what is your most embarrassing favorite song?
Okay, let's see.
You really secretly rocked out to this and people would judge you. Maybe.
Oh yeah. Oh, the lion sleeps tonight. Yeah. 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 That was I did some really stupid things to that.
whole nother podcast.
That's another phone call entirely.
Entirely.
Right. Question 6. What is one thing you wish you could uninvent, as in it would no longer exist?
ATVs.
Okay.
People drive them everywhere where I live, and they're very noisy. And the people who are driving them don't pay any attention to where they're going. They're just, I wish that someone would have thought a second time before doing that.
So maybe we just uninvent ATV drivers?
Oh, that'd be good too.
Yeah.
Just kidding, ATV drivers. I know you're a large subset of our audience.
Just
some
sort of Venn diagram in there somewhere, but we'll figure that out later. All right, Andrea, this has been so great. Thank you so much for joining us on Flock Talk. I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon.
Absolutely.
Right, this has been delightful.
You've been listening to Flock Talk, the podcast where we feature your favorite authors and narrators. Hosted by Craig Hart and Sarah Hannon. This podcast is produced by Pink Flamingo Productions. Editing by Craig Hart. Visit us today at pinkflamingoproductions.com.